Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim. No, not really. I'm Mono Whiteboarder, also known as Peter, and today I'm joined by our guest and longtime friend, Cole, formerly of the Uncommon Commander podcast, and now of a new podcast on EDH, the Heroes Blade Vibe Check. Is that right, Cole?
That is correct. That is the title.
You want to tell a little bit about your background with Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, I was introduced to Magic at some point in the late 90s, early 2000s as a kid. And I very the only thing I remember was playing with a mono black deck that had rats in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I read the Arena novel and then the Green Sleeves saga in elementary school. And then a friend of mine came back from summer camp in high school and was like, "Hey, do you know Magic?" And I would bust out all these old mono green cards that suck. And then from that point onward, I was basically hooked, started playing in earnest in 2011, and have basically been playing Commander almost exclusively since 2012 to now.
Perfect. So you're going to be an expert for our design challenge because our design challenge for the month of March was Year of the Dragon. Design a new version of one of the Elder Dragons. And as you all know, we always have some bonus points to go along with it. And these are our first one comes from Tim, a very EDH-y bonus point. March Enemy. This card will probably win you the game if your opponents don't manage to remove it by your next turn. And then Gabby's bonus point. Brood Mother. Pick one of the existing Lady Elder Dragons or otherwise use some feminine flavor text. What do you think you're kind of looking for? Is there any favorite Elder Dragon you have, Cole, that you'd like to see reimagined a little differently?
I'm a really big fan of the Tarkir Elder Dragons.
Nice.
And I do have a preference for Velomachus Lorehold when they introduced the other color pairings during Strixhaven. That cycle of Elder Dragons is pretty good, but Velomachus is kind of at the top of my list.
Yeah, some new school Elder Dragons, and obviously an affinity for Boros, knowing from playing EDH together. Definitely.
No surprise.
If we see some Boros EDH Dragons, it'll make Cole happy. Also, Cole, keep your eyes out. At the end, we always kind of do what's your favorite pick at the end? So keep your eyes out. Maybe some Boros ones might have the leg up for getting Cole's favorite card. First up is Red Bay with Nicol Bolas, Queen of the Multiverse, blue, white, green for a legendary Planeswalker Bolas. Has starting loyalty 4. Whenever one or more loyalty counters are put on another Planeswalker you control, put that many loyalty counters on Nicol Bolas, Queen of the Multiverse. And then this Planeswalker has a +1. Each player draws a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand. -3, exile target creature or Planeswalker. -8, you may cast any number of cards exiled by Nicol Bolas without paying their mana costs. Starting off strong here with a Planeswalker.
Very, yeah.
Let's see, can we break this down a little bit so that we can kind of get the whole picture here?
Yeah, so as Magic designs change, we now have these passives that seem to show up on a lot of Planeswalkers, and this is a very powerful one in this case of obviously having your super friends kind of synergy. And on top of that, the fact that you're able to have card advantage and card, an even harsher card denial on the plus is pretty good, especially in a multiplayer game where people have to hum and haw about what they're exiling from their hand. Exile tends to be a bit of a sore spot for people, and it's so interesting to see it in Bant colors in a +1. But we're also talking about a Nicol Bolas variant, so this also checks out.
And it's worth noting this Nicol Bolas is spelled with an E at the end, which is the traditional feminine spelling of Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we've also reimagined it. I guess is Bant the opposite of Grixis? I suppose so, right?
I guess you could look at it from the foundation of blue in terms of intelligence and scheming. But yeah, in terms of just sort of, if you're looking at black and white on a morality sense, then yeah, you could look at it in that opposite as well. And then nature, an affinity for nature with green versus red's possible impulsiveness and emotion. Overall, We're looking at Super Friends with a preference of harsh denial of resources from our opponents.
Mhm.
And then if we're all because of the cards that are going to be exiled, when you hit Nicol Bolas's -8, you're able to just start casting all of these stockpiled spells, which could be really powerful because people then have to worry about what they're discarding. So it's really hard decision making.
Yeah, Nicol Bolas and the story, the canon magic story, is very much I want to be the only planeswalker and I want to take away all the sparks. And instead, this Nicol Bolas wants you to have a bunch of planeswalkers and a bunch of friends hanging around, and she gets more powerful as other planeswalkers are using their abilities and doing their planeswalkery thing. But outside the passive, it's your classic +1 draw card, -3 protect yourself, -8 win the game. I have
Win
to
the game.
imagine you're winning the game.
It definitely feels like if we're looking at an overall design standpoint and looking at Tim and Gabby's bonus points here, I feel like this design hits both of them dead on.
Mhm.
That -8 with potentially like a bunch of other resources in like maybe blue or white to help kind of like stagnate people. You could start picking up a lot of really powerful spells and then just get your Mystics' Mastery equivalent on the -8.
Mm-hmm. The dream scenario play pattern. So let's say in a 1v1 setting, you're exiling your opponent's most powerful thing. You have 3 other planeswalkers on the battlefield. No, you need more than that. So you can +1 exile the worst card from your opponent's hand, have 3 other planeswalkers, and get your Nicol Bolas up to 8 or 8 loyalty on your next turn, and then -8, and you have the 1 spell from your opponent. Probably not ideal.
No, but
That's your 1 turn cycle you're looking at.
I think about like the color combination now. Well, okay, so let's look at it this way. So we're in green, so you have doubling season.
Mm-hmm.
White has gotten Lae'zel Vlaakith's Champion, I think is the full title, from Battle for Baldur's Gate that helps you get more of a counter if one would be placed on it. So there's a lot of ways to supercharge this Bolas by yourself. But when you think about the swath of Planeswalker cards that have been coming out in the last few years, like I'm immediately looking at this and thinking of Kasmina Enigma Sage
Mm-hmm.
from Strixhaven, where each other Planeswalker you control has the loyalty abilities of Kasmina as well. So you're able to kind of exploit the other abilities of Planeswalkers on top of just getting a bunch of loyalty counters. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting. My brain's already on fire just thinking about the different ways that you could use this.
Mm-hmm.
Even just having a bunch of loyalty without hitting the -8 is just really strong. The +1 and the -3 are really good, and if you're backing up with other planeswalkers, you're keeping Nicol Bolas in play just through possibly the amount of loyalty counters that you can make.
Yep. How much is this Nicol Bolas a win more? Where it's like, if you have 4 other planeswalkers in play, are you not probably winning the game already?
Yeah, maybe.
Versus this Nicol Bolas is also very much like, well, sometimes you have 4 other planeswalkers in play and they don't, and none of them individually win the game, and then you play this, and this will win you the game. Because
Yeah,
in like a multiplayer context, each opponent exiles a card with the +1, so you're getting 3 cards that you get to cast for free. That's probably pretty good. That's probably strong.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a really interesting design, and I feel as if there's enough open-endedness to like make a neat deck out of it. Also, everyone will be scared for sure seeing this.
Yeah, definitely meets the design challenge. I think we're both confident that it's going to meet Tim's bonus point. This ultimate, if you can get there, is probably going to win the game. And then obviously meets Gabby's bonus point with the reimagining of Nicol Bolas using the feminine Nicol.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You want to read the next one?
Yeah, of course. This submission is from Sage B. It's Merivia Sal the Catalyst. It's 2 generic, green, blue, and red for a 4/4 Elder Dragon with flying. Whenever Merivia Sal the Catalyst enters the battlefield or attacks, let's go Titan templating. Dragon creatures you control get +1/+0 for each card in your hand until end of turn. Whoa. Okay. And then when Marivia Sal, the catalyst, dies, search your library for a dragon creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. With the flavor text, she was granted life, only to be taken away by the weak, said by Nicol.
Okay. 5 mana 4/4. Enters the battlefield or attacks. We're pumping all of our dragons for each card in our hand. So if we got, let's say, 4 cards in our hand, we're giving them all +4/+0. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, having an overrun-like effect on ETB and attacking, and it also happens to include Marivia Sal because it just says dragon creatures you control.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can give her haste, you, again, are probably winning the game.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about the second ability is that's probably the most fair version of a tutor effect because it's obviously not putting it into play. But it does allow you to just start looking through the bonkers suite of Tamer dragons in Magic's history and just get one ready to get loaded up for future plays, which is super cool.
Okay, there's an interesting play pattern here where you cast your Marevia Sal, and then there's an ETB trigger on the stack to give all your dragons +1/+0 for each card in your hand. And then you have a sack outlet, you sacrifice your Marevia Sal, and you get a dragon from your library. Oh, but it goes into your hand. Okay, so it goes into your hand. So you need some sort of flash mechanic. Oh, okay. And then here's your cool combo. Okay, so you have Renari, Merchant of Marvels, which is it's a 4 mana 2/4 in blue, and you can cast dragon spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. So now you can get any cool dragon. You know, turn 4, you play your Renari. Turn 5, you cast Marevia Sal from the command zone, sacrifice her, get your coolest dragon, and flash it in. Easy. Oh, also you need just like 10 mana on turn 5 or whatever, but that's piece of cake.
Now, you know what? We're not thinking deep enough. We need to already have flash on board, and we need to find Mirim's Sentinel Worm.
Well, I don't even know what that does.
Well, hey, this is the thing, is that we're just talking about Battle for Baldur's Gate cards. This is what we're going to do.
Oh, of course.
Mirim is whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it.
Oh, whatever.
So
God,
you get some real cracked situations where you go get your Mirim Sentinel Worm, put her out, go grab Marevia Sal, and pump up your board twice at times the number of cards in your hand, and then you're really winning the game at that point for sure. But the general vibe I think we're going for here is that this is also another card that manages to meet both the bonus points just from sheer value on ETB from this card alone. Like it's a very good, powerful effect.
Yeah, that ETB is gonna do some damage, and you keep getting the value from it. It's just this card is like oozing with value of like, you get the ETB. Oh, they kill it before my next turn, and I don't get to attack. Well, that's okay. You get to tutor out a cool dragon from your library.
I'd argue you could just keep the flying and the ETB and attack trigger, and this card would still be amazing. And it just goes into fantastic with the die tutor trigger.
Here's her MTG wiki page. It's pretty long, but I'll read the whole thing anyway. So buckle up. Marevia Sal was the sister of Arcades, Sabbath, Chromium, Pallades, Mor, Nicol, and Ugin. She was the cousin of Ivectus Asmodi. After being spawned by the Ur-Dragon, she was killed by bipedal hunters implied to be human. So not the most exciting life that she got to live.
That explains the flavor text then.
She was granted life, but only to be taken away by the weak. Oh, yeah. Damn harsh, Nicol. Jeez.
Just telling you as it is.
So deep cut. Awesome card. Thanks, Sage B. Next up, we have Pat with Culligan, Commanding Dragon Lord. 6 black-red for a 6/5 legendary creature Elder Dragon. Culligan has Raid, costs 1 less to cast for each creature you've attacked with this turn. Flying, creatures you control attack each turn if able, and attacking creatures you control get +3/+0 and have first strike. Ooh, very attacky card, which makes sense.
So you're able to incorporate the Mardu / Kolaghan Brood. You have a Tarkir, because Raid started in Tarkir, so you get Raid.
Right.
When you're looking at it from like a lore standpoint. Kolaghan coming out after like an attack has already occurred is pretty interesting because it was usually like they would be sent out beforehand and then the dragons would come in afterward to like work together. So you get this delay period of you have your creatures sort of calling her out. She shows up, and then the following turn afterward is that you don't have much of a choice in turn how you have to attack. But the last ability of your attacking creatures get +3/+0 and have first strike. The attacking bonus kind of reminds me of Kolaghan's first version, where you get their board gets +1/+0 for each dragon that's attacking.
Right. Kolaghan's the Storm Fury had dash. That was the like black-red mechanic.
Yeah, from Fate Reforged.
And then so you could put Kolaghan in, you could dash Kolaghan in, and you get this bonus temporarily for a slightly cheaper cost, or for the same cost, and then you get a hasty dragon that also gets to attack in. This one's a little bit weird because all of the cool stuff affects attacking, but you don't really want to cast Kolaghan until after you've attacked.
Yeah.
But you do get a 2-mana 6/5, so like that's pretty cool. I like 2-mana 6/5. But then I have to hope and wait around to get to the next turn, which maybe is the intention with the design to match Tim's bonus point of, hey, I got this 2-mana 6/5. Also, next turn, I'm coming for you. Like, here it comes.
Yeah. I feel as if this was sort of like the condition of making sure to reinvent Kolaghan using pre-existing mechanics and like certain features that Kolaghan's had between her original printing and then also like a callback to Tarkir's mechanics, but also the fact that like Pat clearly had to like try to keep the design in check by having such a strong cost reduction, followed by this does stick around, getting a plus, like if you attack with 6 creatures throughout Kolaghan for 2, and then next turn your 6 creatures got +3/+0 and a first strike. Yeah, this feels very game ending. If in that sense, it quote unquote feels fair, which I think is pretty awesome.
Do you think Rakdos is the color combo with maybe the least like I'm ending the game next turn potential? I feel like maybe green and blue have a lot of that. Like next turn, this game is over.
Well, you could say that about green blue for a lot of different reasons.
Right.
You know, as someone who is a Boros player who also what do they call it when you go to like college, university, and you get like a minor degree in something, or
like a dual major?
Yeah, like I'm also a Mardu mage, and I can tell you as a matter of fact that once a Mardu mage gets rolling, like Rakdos Lord of Riots, getting the cost reduction on your colorless spells, and then just throwing out Eldrazi Haymakers, and then saying pass the turn, you got to deal with it. Yeah, Rakdos in general definitely has this type of explosive potential in a lot of different like recent designs that have come out within the last couple of years.
Here's my thing. Next turn, I'm attacking you, unless you stop me. You know, which I guess is a very, very red mindset, very Rakdos mindset. So that makes total sense.
She almost kind of feels like the Kolaghan we should have gotten instead of what was printed in Dragons Tarkir.
Yeah, the Dragons of Tarkir being just other creatures you control have haste, and whenever opponent casts a creature or planeswalker spell with the same name as a card in his or her graveyard, the player loses 10 life.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, Slime Against Humanity just got printed, and you can have any number of those in your deck. And let me tell you, as the receiving end of those decks, maybe that Kolaghan does have a home on some commander tables now.
The 10-year plan is finally coming to fruition with the original Dragons.
The foresight that the design team had was obscene. This next submission is from Just Nigel. Brood of Vilis Vel, 3 and double green Kindred Instant with the subtype Shapeshifter. It's got Changeling, so it's every creature type. Until the end of the turn, token creatures you control get +3/+3, gain all creature types, and gain Trample. With the flavor text, her eggs could hatch all kinds.
Okay. Your classic overrun type effect here, but specifically for tokens.
Yeah.
Is overrun 5 mana for +2/+2?
Overrun is five mana, 2 and 3 green at sorcery speed. Like it is only a sorcery.
Oh yeah, this is instant. Yeah.
If we're looking at sort of how Magic has changed in terms of design and relative speed, it's from like an overview. This is very strong to have at as an instant, but the kind of thing that kind of fixes that is the fact that it only affects token creatures. This also, because of like the nature of it being changeling, a typal spell that affects all of your creature types, is that while it does it makes them dragons on top of being every other creature type. This is very interesting to think about in terms of like its application.
So it's kind of interesting with Sage B's card, Marevi Sal. You play Marevi Sal. This is kind of lining up with our strategy here. Turn 10, you have 10 mana. You play Marevi Sal. You get the ETB. You sacrifice her, and then you tutor up your changeling your changeling kindred instant that can then
Oh,
overrun your opponents. So there's
but
like an interesting line.
but you see, my thing with that is that when we're playing Teamer Dragons, we're not making that many
Right.
tokens that would be
Hmm.
affected by this spell. They made like 1/1 fairy dragons, and we can get our 6/6s from like Udvara Hellkite. But this is very this is a very conditional spell, which kind of makes it really interesting because it has all the features of like what could be a very busted spell, but its ceiling is theoretically bonkers because of typal synergies that could be incorporated into it.
Hmm. So this card is part of like an unfinished cycle, if you will. So you have Blades of Velasvel, which is the red one,
Hmm.
gives up to 2 target creatures +2/+0. Shields of Velasvel, which is going to give creatures target players control +0/+1. And then Wings of Velasvel, which creates a 4/4 with and then all of these obviously give all creature types just like just Nigel's submission here.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like we don't have a black one, we don't have a green one, so it's kind of adding to that cycle. It is pretty crafty. I'll give it to just Nigel. They're pushing the limits of the design challenge. The design challenge just says design a new version of one of the Elder Dragons.
Mm.
Which Vel is Vel, not technically an Elder Dragon, but this card is an Elder Dragon.
Yes, it's a very powerful card,
Hmm.
which when I do usually think of like maybe not like the very first printings of Elder Dragons, but definitely the Elder Dragons that we've been seeing in Tarkir, Strixhaven, and then let's say Piru from was it Commander Legends maybe, harkening back to older like the older pay X mana to keep your Elder Dragons alive kind of thing, but very very powerful, and does also have at least if anything Gabby's bonus in terms of mentioning her eggs.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
We're,
interesting, neat design with a lot of interesting choices to end up where in this current version.
hmm Yeah, it's kind of you could the idea of like casting this first to make all your tokens dragons and then casting the Sage B card to pump all of your dragons. You can do that too. Yeah, there's just a lot of different little knobs on this card that were being turned.
Hmm.
And we love knobs. Awesome card. Lots to think about. Next up is Home Slice with Palladium Moor's Awakened Fury. 4 red, green, white. For a 5/5 legendary creature Elder Dragon. Fly and Trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay red, green, white. If you do, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn.
You know, these upkeep and next combat after it comes out conditions are really neat designs.
Hmm.
It harkens back to the old cycles condition of being able to pay those like 3 of their color to keep them in play.
Yep.
But it's the fact that the condition of, all right, you've paid for a 7-mana creature, a legendary creature that's probably going to be in your command zone. And nowadays, in terms of Commander and EDH, that's a big investment. So being able to have the casual cost of red, green, and white to double the power and toughness of each creature you control on your upkeep is monstrously huge. This is super cool.
Mm-hmm. There's that new enchantment out now, right? That's like 5 mana for an enchantment that doubles the power.
Yeah, it's
before every combat.
I've played this a couple times now. So it was I believe it was from Midnight Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quadruple green and 1. A natural growth happens each combat, which is good offensively and defensively. But yeah, like, this design is definitely going to be winning. If it's not going to win you the game, you're getting that much closer to doing so.
Mm-hmm.
You augment your creatures in a way that make them incredibly tanky. So any attempt to block or try to, like, kill your creatures on the attack, basically negligible, or it doesn't really help you in any way. And Palladium Auras having built-in trample and becoming a 10/10 is fantastic. And we're in the right colors just to buff your Palladium Auras just a bit more to just OKO, 1KO someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have anything that just gives like +1/+1 double strike, you're good. You're golden. They're out.
Good old Teamer Battle Rage.
And it kind of makes the extra hoops a little bit better to jump through than with like the enchantment version, where the enchantment doesn't come with a creature. You know, if you play the enchantment with no board, kind of sad. If you play Palladium Moors with no board, you still got a 10/10 trample. That's pretty good. You know, obviously maybe 7 mana here is a little expensive, especially with the 3 mana at every upkeep. But we respect the callback to the OGs here.
I will say in this case, just looking at the bonus points criteria here, we do get Tim's bonus of having a game-ending part, but I can't remember, or I don't know. Is Palladium Auras male or female?
That's a good question. And for that, we consult the MTG wiki. She was spawned by the Ur Dragon, along with her brothers, Arcades, Nicol, Ugin, and Chromium.
And then it also happens to be Gabby's criteria as well.
Yep. So far, I think everyone's done a pretty good job of being like, yes, this is game ending, but requires setup, which I think is kind of the trick of the bonus point from Tim. Because it'd be very easy to make a card that is game ending the turn it comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
But Tim wants it the next turn. So you have to have just enough of a hoop that there's some time for your opponents to answer it. Which is kind of that's like the dream commander scenario. I feel like everybody loves I'm the arch enemy now. Good luck, everyone.
I mean, you can be the arch enemy as a treat, you know?
Awesome. On to our next submission.
I wonder who this is. I don't recognize this name. It's Mono White Border?
Oh. Yeah, I've never heard of that person in my life.
Let's check out what's going on here. We have Nameless Adventurer, which is a 3 mana 2/2, 3 generic. It's a creature. A Nameless Adventurer can't be blocked by creatures with greater power than it. 5 generic. Cards you own named Nameless Adventurer perpetually gains when this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile it, then return to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. And then it becomes Nicol Resparked. I thought we were over with this guy, but he just had to come back again.
I'm sorry. The ultimate betrayal.
Starts off at 0 loyalty. Nicol Resparked enters the battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on it equal to the damage dealt by creatures you control named Nameless Adventurer this game. Has a -2 of exile target creature or planeswalker, draw 2 cards. And then -X, return target creature or planeswalker card with mana value X from a graveyard to the battlefield under your control. You can't keep a bad dragon down? Can't keep a bad dragon down.
Bad dragon down. I was scraping the barrel trying to think of like, oh gosh, what do I want to do for bringing back a planeswalker. I'm like, well, no one's gonna bring back Nicol Bolas, right? Everyone's sick of him, so I'm gonna do something different. Of course, Renday beat me to it by like a mile.
Oh, that is hilarious. All right, so what did you have in mind?
Okay,
this?
so the intention is this is a digital only card. The art for Nameless Adventure is one of the avatars. There's like an avatar that's like this cloaked figure with no face. That's just called, I think they're just called the Nameless or something. And so that's the front half is like you play this, he's kind of sneaking around, and then when you're ready, let's say you've maybe hit your opponent 2 or 3 times with this, you can pay 5 mana, flip him, and then he'll come in as a planeswalker with 6 loyalty because the Nameless Adventure is a 2/2. And then you can either start exiling stuff, or maybe you have like a powerful 6-drop in your library that can end the game.
So I'm curious because in comparison to the other ones we've seen so far, this creature isn't a legendary, and is it was just like you wanted to see if it, like you could have 4 copies of Nameless Adventurer to at least get the engine started.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea being that, you like let's say they kill your Nameless Adventurer, like. Maybe you play Nameless Adventure and you attack in with 2 damage and you flip it, but then Nicol Bolas is only a 2/2, and maybe you're just doing that so that you can have the removals part of them, where you go -2, you kill your Nicol Bolas, and then you just play another Nameless Adventure. Because I was picturing this happening on Arena. There's no EDH on Arena, so
yeah, they only have Brawl.
So yeah, I was like picturing this in like a 60 card format with like you have 4. You have 4, which is funny. I don't know why this this is the most EDH-y of all the design challenges, and I was like, oh, what about if this was like a 60 card constructed historic format?
Yeah, get that Arena / alchemy brain working.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of the Nicol Bolas side, also like keeping track of that, leading to the sort of constructed design part of the front face. And being able to kind of like condense everything down to just 2 abilities and the 1 passive, you managed to get the spirit and energy of Bolas pretty down pat in terms of what he's able to do.
Yeah, I think where I might have missed is obviously I just completely whiffed on Gabby's bonus point. Nicol Bolas is a dude. He's an evil dude. He's a bad guy. So missed on that one.
Despite what some people may say on the internet, he is definitely a bad guy.
And I'm not sure I can convince anybody that this is ending the game next turn if it goes unanswered. I think you need a couple turns of Nameless Adventure dealing combat damage before you get to game ending state with this. So keep my streak going. I think I've missed the bonus points on like the last 3 months of design challenges, so I figure I just keep my streak going.
Keep it consistent, I can appreciate it.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Mono Whiteboarder, whoever you are.
Yeah, whoever that was.
Next up is Wobbles with Answer, Undead Bronze Dragon, 5 green/black for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon Zombie. That's a 7/6. Answer has flying, and whenever Answer Undead Bronze Dragon deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. When you do, destroy each other artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value X or less, where X is the result, and has Unearth 1 black, green.
Okay, I gotta gush for a second here. Because the only way I would know what this card is referencing is if I didn't play Baldur's Gate 3. So Wobbles, you get the personal thumbs up from Cole in terms of just awesomeness.
Well, and so our listeners are very familiar with Baldur's Gate 3. So I am not, but we've had Gabby and Tim have done a couple different episodes on Baldur's Gate 3. So I don't know if they talked about Answer. I know they didn't talk about Answer in the first one. What is so who is Answer in the Baldur's Gate 3?
So at least this is coming from someone who has only played Baldur's Gate 3, so I've not had Baldur's Gate 1 or 2 experience. Answer was in his life a bronze dragon that assisted Baldur's Gate alongside Baldurin, who was like the founder of the city.
Hmm.
Fast forward to Baldur's Gate 3, and you find his body, his undead basically lich body, in the undercity of Baldur's Gate. And at this time, as it turns out, one of these characters that's been helping you is actually Baldurin, just transformed and being able to have like much more longevity. And at this point, Answer's like, "All right, screw you. I'm gonna kill you now." And then you and your party have to fight an undead bronze dragon in the undercity of Baldur's Gate, which is very cool.
So Answer's a bad guy.
Bad
dragon.
Probably kind of a bad dragon just due to wear and tear of time itself.
Mm-hmm.
But so on top of that, of having a mana value cost that would feel appropriate for an elder dragon, and the fact that it's also a zombie is also very cool. It also harkens to the design of the cycle of dragons that were coming out when Commander Legends Battles for Baldur's Gate comes out. We're going to be talking about that set a lot this thing, it feels like. I love that set a lot. Upon dealing damage, you roll a d20, which is very standard for the Dungeons and Dragons set.
Yep.
But the fact that it can scale up that high to destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment, and the fact that it literally destroys everything, including your own stuff, is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact it also has Unearth, just to give you a second shot of bringing Answer back. This is a very cool design on multiple fronts. It feels in flavor of like standard Magic design for Elder Dragons in terms of a very powerful effect. And clearing the board, like obviously if you roll less than like 5, like you're 5 or less, you probably get some stuff, but it doesn't feel as good as just hitting that natural 20 and just saying, screw this whole board, get rid of everything, you know? Yeah, no, it's very cool, very cool.
Yeah. What else is in our EDH deck, our Answer EDH deck, that is designed to survive most of the D20 rolls? So like Emrakul sneaks past. Is Emrakul banned in Commander?
It depends on which version.
One?
So Emrakul, the 15 mana version that was originally in Rise of the Eldrazi is banned in Commander.
Okay.
But we do have the Shadows over the Eldritch Moon version.
Mm-hmm.
This type of effect would usually have a condition that every player sacrifices each other permanent that would be affected. But in this case, it does say specifically destroy. So if we have things like that can regenerate, that has indestructible, or some other condition that allows them to come back after they died, because there's a lot of like the 1 and 2 mana spells that allow you to just have the creature die and come back tapped, or some other condition. We're in black-green, so we have access to a lot of those types of effects. We have access to a lot of creatures that like probably coming back or reanimating when they die or whatever. There's just a lot of things that can be done to set ourselves up to clear the way while also filling our graveyard up or keeping certain things in play. So that way the next time everyone's trying to clean up and set back up while we're already in a much better position to get the board state set up to finish the game.
And that's a great plan. And I think that's really reasonable of trying to, build in some indestructible, regenerate, get some resilience to your board. Because rolling a d20, most of the time you're going to blow up the entire board. Like,
if we're talking about statistical averages, like most stuff is going to be wiped. It does kind of feel like overkill, but like that's the kind of the whole point of the design.
But what's not going to be wiped is the Draco you're paying 16 mana for, obviously.
Yeah.
So you roll 12. Oh, everything dies except my 9/9 Draco.
or your Scion of Draco.
Yeah. Scion of Draco, he's what, 15 exactly? Oh, he's only 12. He's only 12.
Oh, okay. Well, even he's not. Scion of Draco is not
close.
immune.
Yeah, he's getting close to that 10 mana. That critical number 10 that is going to get hit most often. I guess the one thing I'd say is this is like an interesting amount of variance. Kind of the tricky part with those Elder Dragons from, the Ancient Bronze, Ancient Brass is the nature of the D20, there's a high amount of variance in the D20 of like sometimes you're going to roll a 3 and that's just going
Yeah.
to feel so bad with all of these because you when you're playing with them you're kind of expecting the
I mean,
10.
the ceiling is so high
Yeah.
that when you do get those low rolls, I mean, it's just like regular D&D, where you're
Hmm.
like, I roll and I rolled a 2. Well, I ain't doing anything for the move that I just tried to do, so I guess nothing happens. And they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, that's a shame. Moving on, you know. But
What
yeah,
what's like the minimum roll on these ancient dragons to where like you don't feel bad like
uh, we're
eight one ones. The white one
for
makes a bunch of one
from
ones.
the white one. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I feel as if like the green one gets +1 counters. The
Yep.
red one makes X treasures. The black one reanimates an X mana value creature or less, I think. So I want to say about 5, like maybe 5 is probably like the number
Okay.
that feels okay, not great, not amazing, but like just good enough. And in this case, in Answer's case, like you're probably clearing the board of like a pretty
Yeah.
significant chunk of permanence.
Honestly, if you roll a 5 or 6 on answer, you're probably feeling amazing because now
Yeah.
you get another attack with your 7/6, or you can hold him back and then wait till you need to wipe the board again, which is kind of what makes the unearth
And
cool on
yeah,
this
I was
card.
gonna say the having the unearth is very flavorful in terms of like having an undead dragon that's coming back again, but also being able to give it haste and then just to kind of reload yourself for the next time. Yeah, no, just a really solid design overall.
Yep. Awesome. All right, you want to read our next submission?
Yeah, you can't have a design challenge about elder dragons without Ugin and Bola showing up at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. So we have James Dalton Bell here with Ugin Dragon Ascetic, and the flip side being Ugin Planner Explorer. So Ugin's front side, for 1 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue, and 1 white, for a 3/4 Elder Dragon with flying, when Ugin Dragon Ascetic enters, manifest the top card of your library, where the top card is then placed face down as a 2/2 creature. You can turn it up anytime for its mana value or its mana cost if it's a creature card. Then you can pay 5 and 1 colorless to exile Ugin, and then return it to the battlefield transformed. You can only activate it as a sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dragon Planner Explorer, who's obviously a legendary planeswalker Ugin with a starting loyalty of 4. Cost to turn, face down permanents you control face up are reduced by Wooburg. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. The +1 loyalty ability is manifest the top card of your library. The -1 is Ugin Planner Explorer, deals 3 damage to target permanent that is 1 or more colors. -8, each opponent chooses 1 colored permanent they control, then exiles all other non-land permanents they control.
Oh wow. Okay, so front side, we're getting a 4 mana 3/4 flying that requires both exactly 1 colorless mana and banned colors.
And banned colors, yeah.
It enters with a 2/2, so we're getting a total of 5 power, 6 toughness. And then at some point down the line, we can pay 6, one of which has to be colorless, to flip over our Ugin. And then he starts making our manifest a lot easier to flip over if we want to. Or if we want to leave our manifest all face down, we can work to getting that alt off and take out most of our opponent's stuff. But because our manifests are colorless, get to leave all of our 2/2s and then start flipping them over.
Yeah. The other cool thing that I was thinking about this in terms of recent Magic sets is Murder at Karlov Manor, because of the detective face down anonymous identity effects that were put in. So there was also a face down turn cards face up theme here. And a lot of them had colored pips to flip them face up. So Ugin's passive really does help synergize not only with manifests and morphs.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, the disguise synergy in Murders at Karlov Manor also has a few payoffs in like red, where you can deal damage.
Mm-hmm.
Be it that, these face down cards have built-in ward 2, so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of ways to set yourself up over time, get your Ugin down, and then flip him over into his other form, and then being able to use that -8 at some point. And obviously that takes time, but I feel as if there's just enough payoffs with the passive to just be able to flip your creatures over for a much cheaper value, that you don't necessarily need the -8 to win the game. The setup of having the reduced cost of each colored pip is by itself very strong.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a legendary creature on the front side, it's kind of neat as the like. We have a couple different morph manifest like face down card like EDH cards.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of the Bant representative for that group. I know there's a Sultai one, and then Animar. A lot of people do Animar morph shenanigans.
Yeah.
But Animar kind of gets you a lot of heat if you're doing that. So
It's very easy to combo off with Animar.
Yep. As far as this lands and I'm winning the game next turn, I guess it is about how if you play this and you flip it the next turn, you're you aren't really winning the game. You're not locking people out. Now, if you do get to ultimate this, that's very strong.
Yeah.
And then your opponents are in trouble.
I actually had a question now that I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of this card's color identity, because if a card mentions or visually indicates all 5 colors in its text box, doesn't that mean that the color identity of the card is actually 5 colors for Commander?
That's a good question.
Because you can't play Fist of Suns or Door to Nothingness in any deck, like the same way you can't play Morofun in every deck, which means that even though the color properties of Ugin is colorless, blue, white, and green on the front face, it is actually, because of the Planeswalker side, a 5-color identity card for the purposes of Commander.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
At first I thought, you can't play the red cards in Murders at Karlov Manor so you can have like you turn your card face up payoff. But you're actually able to, which then suddenly just puts this card at a much higher praising point for me. Like, I think the card's neat in general, and I think because of the ability on the backside, the passive and the -8 feels like you could have a really huge blowout turn to get Tim's bonus of probably being able to win the game on the next turn, or at least close enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just go kind of crazy flipping over cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough to be like, yeah, this game's probably over. Yeah. It would be really crazy, and I don't think there's room for this on this card, but it's like kind of using the red bait tech of, you can, if you do what your strategy is, you can get additional loyalty counters so that you can ultimate your Planeswalker on the very next turn. But I think perhaps the design is healthier for not doing that, and it's more interesting as just here's a creature, manifest, now I flip it over, now I'm doing my Planeswalker, I'm manifesting some more. Definitely.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. And the final submission here is from Crypt Rat. Lorehold, Living Lesson. Here you go, Cole. I thought we weren't going to make it. We got
Strixhaven. Let's go. Let's go.
Strixhaven and Boros finishing strong. Lorehold, Living Lesson, red white for a 3/3 legendary creature Elder Spirit Dragon. Lorehold Living Lesson has flying. When it enters the battlefield, if it wasn't unearthed, sacrifice it and surveil 3.
Oh, interesting.
Once during your turn, you may cast an artifact or spirit card from your graveyard. When you do, exile Lorehold Living Lesson, then shuffle her into your library. Unearth, red, white hybrid, white. Okay, so there's a lot of text on this card. Let's break it down a little bit. So we have a 2-mana 3/3 with flying. That's good rate. Great rate.
Mm-hmm.
But if you cast this from 2 mana from your hand just for its normal mana cost, you're sacrificing it and you're just surveilling 3. So really, in your hand, this is 2 mana surveil 3.
But if it's in your command zone, this is a little more
Ooh, yeah.
tricky.
You kind of.
Okay, this is okay. I understand we need to break it down, but this is really
Mhm.
interesting to me because it feels like this is a mix between Sarah Avenger a bit and the Titans that showed up on our on Theros Beyond Death. So you have this condition of if it hadn't entered through its alternative means, you have to sacrifice it and you get some kind of payoff. In this case, Surveil 3. Surveil, I've gotten a really high preference for in terms of an effect because of just what you're able to put into your graveyard as a
Mhm.
trade-off here. So being able to pay 2 mana to have a sack trigger on a creature type, a relevant creature type, a decent body for its cost. So there can be some effects in red that like care about if something died equal to like do something equal to its power or toughness kind of thing. So that's already pretty neat. But this is where it gets really funky in terms of like how, because this definitely feels more like a constructed format playable card than a commander card because of the unearth being shuffled into your library and so on.
Mhm.
Honor for 3, good value. Being able to do this for 2, surveil 3, and then do an unearth, fantastic. And then being able to cast an artifact or spirit card from your graveyard, which is in theme for Strixhaven and is
Mhm.
specifically for the School of Lorehold. But then having her sort of be an unearth slash escape condition for like whatever that spirit or artifact card is, and then putting her back into your library to kind of reload is also very cool. It's just so interesting seeing how seeing Lorehold weave in and out of your deck, and if you have more than one copy, you're like
Mhm.
churning through a deck, putting stuff in your graveyard, maybe keeping certain things on top, having artifact and spirit synergies through the graveyard because there's a lot of like interesting low cost payoffs that you can have. This would probably be like a really interesting standard constructed deck or like
Yeah.
modern or something. I just don't know what that would be.
So the second part of this card, Unearth says if it leaves the battlefield, you exile it, regardless of where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Cryptrat did the very important text here. So let's say you unearth this on 3, and then let's say you just cast like an Ornithopter, 0 mana artifact from your graveyard.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're front loading the cost of like adding flashback to your creatures or adding escape to your creatures. You have to unearth Lorehold first. And then Lorehold exiles herself, which meets the unearth condition, and then puts herself in the library, which is just a good way of like, yep, we're getting around the unearth clause and then putting this back in the library so you can keep doing it. Yeah, it definitely feels not so much like a commander card. This definitely feels like it'd be neat and constructed, which maybe is just more encouragement, Cole, for would be more encouragement for you to figure out the commander angle on this, since you do have an affinity for commanders who
No.
are bad commanders.
Okay, listen. Just because I play Odric Blood Curse does not mean. So one of the we got Lost Caverns of Ixalan for its equivalent, or its quote unquote fixed equivalent for Cascade, which I can't now remember what the effect is called. But I feel like you could have in Commander, like you keep your curve low. You have like Warstorm Surge, Vicious Shadows, and a handful of other things. So that way, like, okay, so your commander is low cost, so you're able to like repeatedly like ping people for 3 damage. If we're able to use Cascade or Exile Impulse effects or something, so we can like if we do end up more likely than not shuffling Lorehold into the deck. Here's the other thing too. I'm overthinking it.
Okay.
With Lorehold being 2 mana, there's a lot of effects that White has been getting printed over the last few years that focuses on returning a creature or a permanent from the graveyard to the battlefield if it's
Hmm.
3 or less. So
Yeah.
Lorehold meets that criteria right away. Like Recommission from Brothers War,
Hmm.
or one of my new favorite spells from Phyrexia All Will Be One. It's also a card that I play in my Odric Blood Curse deck. Against all odds,
Hmm.
it's 4 mana, and you get to choose one of 2 modes of either you get to Flicker a artifact or creature that you have in play and immediately put it back in the battlefield. Or in the other mode, what you can also choose is to return something, an artifact or a creature with a mana value 3 or less from your graveyard or the battlefield. So what we could do instead of trying to put her into the library all the time, or trying to activate Unearth, is that we keep Lorehold cycling through the graveyard using all these low-cost effects. Like, maybe your curve is like 4 at most. And then you're surveilling 3, churning through your library, getting like your key reanimation pieces, maybe your busted artifacts. Like, you're probably trying to assemble like a combo with this.
Yep.
On top of your Warstorm Surges and your effects that you're able to like chip away damage at everyone. And then finally, like, you'll kind of reach critical mass and you'll probably be able to like grab your specific resources that you want. Like, you can play Reconstruct History if you kind of like want a fair way to return artifact, enchantment, instant sorcery, planeswalker, and so on. You could probably find a way to like have certain sack outlets on the battlefield to generate passive mana over time while just casting these spells or these effects to have Lorehold return to play for such a low cost, and then eventually you combo out or pop off at some point. And then in a worst case scenario, if you want to be certain that you want something back, but you don't really have all the resources, you can unearth Lorehold, use the once during your turn condition to cast your artifact or spirit from your graveyard, and then finally put Lorehold back in the command zone, which for 4 or 6 mana, I would kind of see as like the maximum amount you would want to invest in this before eventually the investment kind of falls off. My question is, and I'm curious, in the third ability, of the once per turn you may cast an artifact or thing, you might be able to sacrifice Lorehold on the stack of you attempting to cast it, maybe, to then put her back in the graveyard so you don't have to worry about her being shuffled back into your library. It's a very interesting combination of effects that you would have to jump through a lot of hoops to have in the command zone. But I feel like there'd be something there if you're able to kind of like weave her in and out.
Yeah, definitely an interesting card and a nice cap to the end of the episode. So with that, we kind of usually at the end here we kind of pick our favorite.
I do have one high recommendation, or at least one that I thought was kind of the coolest.
I think I have mine as well. So you go first.
Okay. Overall, all the submissions were really cool. I feel like in terms of relative power level, we started off really strong and then we got really funky at the end of it. It makes you really think. But Kolaghan commanding Dragonlord is probably my favorite design of this selection here in terms of just potential, the built-in cost reduction off raid, and then having the next turn payoff. I also like going to combat, so like this is like super sick. And then the +3/+0 and first strike on attacking creatures you control is just really good offensively. I just think it's a really neat redesign of Kolaghan, and it's also in Rakdos colors, which is like my second favorite color pairing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give my favorite to. I think I'm gonna give it to Sage B's Marevi Sal. We, there's this running joke that there's usually a card that's good in the deck with all the other cards from the design challenge, and I think Marevi Sal is the one from that criteria. Pumps all the other dragons, and then the tutor effect is kind of a nice consolation prize if you don't get to attack with her. So yeah, I really like that one. I also like Wobble's Answer Undead Bronze Dragon. I liked hearing about the Baldur's Gate 3 stuff. And I thought that Just Nigel's use of Changeling was creative, and I want to shout that out. That was very good. All right. That is the end of our March Design Challenge, and the end of one Design Challenge means the beginning of another. Our April Challenge should be up. It is Solar Eclipse. There's a solar eclipse that's going through the eastern United States. So we're going to do a challenge inspired by that. That's going to be happening in the beginning of April. Solar Eclipse, design a common with daybound/nightbound. And then, as always, we have bonus points for you. Juliet's bonus point, Breeding Lilacs. Make the card a plant or have it make plant tokens. And then my bonus point, because I'm actually in the Path of Totality, for the solar eclipse, so I'll have the whole sun blocked out by the moon. So my bonus point is titled Path of Totality. Have the rules text include each, all, every, or both. So the dream card is going to be a plant or a plant token. That's a common with each, all, every, or both. You have anything inspiring you about that, Cole? Any instant thoughts of where you'd want to go?
Well, my internet handle that I've had for a long time is been EclipseMeteor, so
Calculated. Yeah, that was planned.
It's checks notes over 15 years in the making for this exact challenge.
Yep.
It would be very interesting to see different daybound and nightbound effects, like designs that weren't solely tied to just Innistrad, and it would be very interesting to see what other people come up with, especially if it's like plant or nature based theme, just for Juliet's bonus. Yeah,
so maybe something from a different plane, maybe that's less, the daybound nightbound kind of has this horror theme element to it, so maybe something else might be interesting to see. Yeah, totally. So that's our podcast for this week. You can join our Discord by following the link in the show notes. Cole, thanks for coming on. Do you want to plug anything? Shout out. I know that you're on a podcast currently.
Yeah, I am on this website called Twitter. I go by Uncommon CMDRMTG, where I get to see many people call out in frustration that Mono White Border is no longer on Twitter. It's probably for the best, though. You can find me there, what I call hashtag Bloodrick posting, because I'm the big... I love Odric Bloodcursed as a card because people said the card sucked, and it's as I checked recently, it has been a 3-year project deck of mine that I've been slowly iterating over time, and it's very, very powerful now. So you can see me talk about that as sets come out and be like, I have to make another cut over on Twitter. And then I'm the co-host of the Heroes Blade Vibe Check podcast, where myself and my co-host Empress Quinn talk about commanders that we played during the week or commanders that we've encountered that pass what we call the Heroes Blade Vibe Check, aka do they benefit from getting a Heroes Blade attached to it when they enter the battlefield, and what are the things that you can do with that? And as it turns out, some people have been cooking with some commanders in a Heroes Blade. So yeah, we got 10 episodes out right now. 11th episode will probably be coming out just before maybe this one comes out. I don't know. We'll see. It's a good time. We come out every couple weeks, and we just talk about the games we've had, brews we've made, and what's going on in the community or what's we've seen online content-wise.
Sounds awesome. Definitely gonna check it out. As always, you can reach me by finding me in the Discord as Mono Whiteboarder, and if you want to reach out to Tim, you can find him at Tim F. Riley in the Discord as well. Thanks for listening. And now there's just kind of space where there's going to be outro music playing, and it's going to go boom, dum, boom. And then we're not going to be talking anymore, and that's the end.
And that's the end. There you go.
All right.